Maz Koshia is one of the many Sheikah monks who spread themselves across Hyrule, determined to test the worthy in both Breath of the Wild and Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. In the latter, this somewhat secret character can be unlocked by following a certain set of challenges on the map, which culminate in a fight with the monk himself, after which he becomes a playable character. Let's dunk with the monk and find out everything that he can do. The monk's regular attack string consists of 7 attacks. He will slash to the left, back to the right, create 2 clones that thrust upward from the ground, then have them both attack to the front, throw their spears down to a spot to the front, all bring out another weapon and slash, and then finish by having all 3 bodies punch down onto the ground. Maz Koshia's regular attack string is fast, and I think easily readable. It makes a great starting point for his playstyle, so let's move on to his other basic moves first. Before I get too much further though, I do have to point out that in my footage, you are going to see the monk create a clone of himself whenever he dodges. This clone that spawns actually explodes after a few seconds. And the reason why this is happening is because this comes from an upgrade that you're able to purchase in the post-game. Anyways, for the monk's regular dash attack, he will make a big slash from right to left before coming to a stop. For his dashing strong attack, he will do a quick flurry of attacks before going right back to his dash. As usual, you use the regular dash attack when you want to stop and dig into a fight, and the strong one to pick up KOs or special attack charge while on the move. For his regular aerial attacks, Monk Maz Koshia will send off large slashes down to the ground, gradually making more duplicates of himself who join in with the assault. His strong aerial attack sees him simply drop a large boulder onto the battlefield, crushing any enemies who happen to be beneath it before it rests on the ground below. This boulder actually interacts with his unique action, but I'll get into what exactly that is later on. For now, let's finish off this section by talking about his Sheikah Slate runes. And starting off with his Stasis rune, the monk will simply time lock the enemies in a small area around him. That's it. Just like with Link, there's no extra flair added to this rune. He simply time locks his enemies and doesn't go into any canned animation after that. And if you ask me, that is all that the Stasis rune really should do for any of these characters. Next up, for the monk's Cryonis rune, he will create a block of ice in front of himself, and then immediately use it to launch himself into the air. From here, you can choose to do nothing and just let him land, or use any of his aerial attacks, or just start riding the wind and glide elsewhere. It's all up to you. Next up, for his Magnesis rune, Maz Koshia will grab any nearby weapons, and the range on this seems to be a bit shorter than the average Magnesis rune, but naturally it still gets the job done for when you're wanting to counter an enemy's Magnesis weak move. Last up, his Remote Bomb rune will have him create a large bomb in front of himself inside of a rune, before blowing it up moments later. The size and blast of this bomb really is quite large, and the explosion happens after only a short delay. With all of the monk's most basic moves out of the way, let's move on to his unique action next. Monk Maz Koshia's unique action is one of those that seems very simple at first, but is actually hiding a world of depth underneath it. Basically, when you hit the button and have at least one bit of charge in his special rune bar, the monk will grow in size and smash a hammer down in front of him. Although the game describes this with the very unhelpful become massive, what it doesn't tell you is that this single attack is meant to be used in conjunction with the various items that the monk drops down onto the battlefield. Let's go back a bit to that strong aerial attack with the boulder that the monk drops down. If you hit this with his hammer, it will immediately start bouncing rather forcefully, which will juggle enemies hit by it until it eventually explodes. This kind of interaction is pretty common for what the monk does with this, and all the different ways he can further attack with the items he drops adds a lot to his range and damage value. And of course, as we go into each strong attack that drops something down, I'll be noting how his unique action interacts with it. Do note that before you can even use his unique action, you need to have at least one level of charge. Most of the time, this can simply be done by attacking the items that you drop onto the battlefield until one of them breaks and lets you absorb some rune charge. Anyways, let's finally jump over to his strong attacks with all of this in mind. For his first strong attack, the monk will take a sword in each hand and start a spinning attack. and if you continue to mash the strong attack button, he will go on for a bit longer with this controllable spin. This can easily cut through crowds, but the monk will get stuck on any stronger enemies, and is generally easy to hit if they're attacking you when this happens. So this one is going to be better off just as a crowd clearer. Next up, for the monk's second strong attack, he will drop an electrically charged ball down to the ground. And if you then hit it with your weapon, it will send out a lightning shock to damage enemies around. If you hit this enough, it will also explode, giving the monk 1 rune of charge. However, if you hit this with your hammer, it will bounce around for a bit and then explode, refunding you with the 1 rune that was needed for you to hit it. For his third strong attack, he will summon up 2 spinning balls that rocket forwards together, before eventually coming to a stop. At this point, if you're fast enough, you can rush forward and destroy them with your attacks, getting back 2 runes of charge if you can break them in time. If you hit them with your hammer, either while they're rolling or while they're stopped, they will also bounce up and down before blowing up and give you back that same double rune charge. Next, the monk's fourth strong attack has him whip out his giant hammer for a spin attack. And just like with his first attack, this one can be extended by continuing to mash the button. Unlike that first strong attack, the extreme range of the hammer makes it a lot safer to use in just about any situation. For his fifth strong attack, Maz Koshia will slam dunk an orb to summon an entire Sheikah Shrine entrance, which if the shrine hits an enemy, it will also force out their weak point gauge. Unlike other items he brings in, this shrine cannot be destroyed at all, and it's definitely more meant to be used with his unique action over actually trying to break it. Each time you use your hammer nearby the shrine, you will instantly gain 2 rune charges. So since you are getting back your 1 spent rune and 1 more, you can go absolutely hammer crazy around this, which will both destroy your enemies nearby and also fill up your rune charge very easily. Last up, for his sixth and final strong attack, the monk will summon up anywhere from 1 to 6 spiky Sheikah balls, depending on how long you continue to press the button, and as these appear, they will also force out enemy weak points. If you continue this attack, he will throw them out where they bounce all around before automatically exploding, giving the monk 1 rune of charge per exploding ball. This means that, yes, if you summon up all 6, you will get 6 charges, instantly filling your rune bar to full just for doing a single strong attack. On top of this, if you hit them with your hammer, these balls will begin bouncing up and down before exploding, again juggling all enemies that are unfortunate enough to get caught in it. All in all, Monk Maz Koshia has an excellent array of attacks, and his unique action Giant Smash gives him an easy way to trigger or not trigger them into the bounce attacks that you saw. With all of his attacks now covered, it's time to move on to his weapons and weapon build recommendation next. Monk Maz Koshia has 3 possible weapons, and going from weakest to strongest, they are the Monk's Bands, Bands of Enlightenment, and the Bands of Truth. I'll put a chart up on screen right now to show off their hidden level 25 and 30 seals, but for my weapon build recommendation today, I'm going to be focusing on his Bands of Truth. Fortunately, this weapon already comes equipped with the 2 best kinds of seals, a square and a star seal, so adding on 3 more attack speed is pretty much a given, and then you'll basically have your pick from any star-shaped seal that you like. And for me, especially given the monk's playstyle and extreme reliance on his strong attacks, I'd have to recommend a strong attack damage one as the final seal. This would give you a very strong build, also with the best damage bonus of plus 20 for having 4 of one shape and 2 of another. However, just like with the rest of the cast, just going for full attack speed and taking the reduced damage buff of plus 15 is also an option. And just like that, there we have Monk Maz Koshia all covered. Let's put everything together and see how this mummified monk holds up. This is something that was likely unnoticed by a lot of players, even those who played the first game, but when I first got my hands on Monk Maz Koshia, I immediately recognized that his playstyle in Age of Calamity was actually the successor playstyle to Link's spinner from the original Hyrule Warriors. Like with the spinner, the monk has the ability to create objects on the battlefield that start up special damage animations when certain triggers are used on them. However, that whole idea is pulled off much more successfully here, as the monk can do all of that with just the single press of a button. Although it is very counterintuitive to understand that his ability to grow large and smash things is secondary to its ability to activate certain traps, once you do understand what it allows you to do, the monk turns into a very effective warrior who can clear crowds and punish bosses like few other characters in the game. Even if you're not into the more complex traps and waiting game that his tools allow you to go for, he is still an effective warrior who is hard not to appreciate, and deserves all the respect that his title grants him. So, what are your thoughts on Monk Maz Koshia? Be sure to leave it below, and if there was anything big about his playstyle that I missed, you can drop that down below as well. I'll be making a pinned comment on this video if I have to put in anything that I may have forgotten. Until next time everybody, thank you so much for watching. Big thank you to my top patrons DW7 Still Rules, Henry Gutierrez, and Ryan Poe, as well as to all of my other patrons on Patreon. If you would like to support this channel and my main channel Shanebrained, check out the links in the description. Thank you all very much.